Hello everyone, this video is going to be about match streaming. So how to use LeagueOS overlays and resources to make a better stream, how to set up your OBS from some basics, but maybe some more advanced options in terms of integrating the overlays. Specifically, we'll work on Rocket League as well, and how to make the Rocket League connection via Bacchus mod. So lots of good detail. Feel free, as always, if you have questions about anything in this video, to reach out to the IEN board, either via Discord or email. We're happy to help. And this is one of those situations where it might even be helpful to schedule a one-on-one call if you're troubleshooting something specific that we can help with. So on LeagueOS, we use the match pages, and there's lots of useful information on the match pages that you're definitely aware of in terms of match chat and communications and those sorts of things. But maybe you haven't noticed a resource tab at the top right. When you click on resources, you're going to be presented with a lot of different information, and all of these will probably start collapsed. You'll see the rules, the one pagers here. Hopefully, you know where those are and have been utilizing those. But at the top, there's streaming tools. So you can expand all of these. The top one is overlays, and we'll go into more in depth of what all these are. But these are the browser sources that you can use on top of your stream in OBS or vMix or whatever platform you like that supports browser sources. There's also images. So all of these will pull from the teams and from the school data. So you can look at different things. And there are game-specific icons as well that you can utilize. And then the last option is colors. If you want to know what specific colors your opponent or you are using, you can copy those hex codes from the color section. On the top right, maybe one of the most important things to note is this little help button. That's the question mark. That button is going to show up all over the place on LeagueOS. And the Help Center will specifically direct you to articles that are related to wherever you click that help icon from. So since we're looking at streaming tools, it'll show us streaming overlay help articles. Match overlays, we're definitely going to go through and look at. OBS Connect is helpful as well. I'll show you these things, but remember those help articles are there if you need help along the way. So let's start with OBS. You may be using a different streaming platform, but OBS is probably the most common. It's free and open source, and what a lot of other stream software is based off of. So we're going to start there. It can be intimidating. There is a lot going on with OBS. It is very full featured. The user interface is consistent and logical once you understand what's going on, but not necessarily the most beginner friendly for sure. So make sure you kind of keep in with things as you're going. So the bottom right controls are probably one of the first things you want to take a look at. That's how you'll start streaming or start recording. You can turn on studio mode so you can preview transitions you're making or edits other than just looking at what's going out live. But there are a few things in settings you want to make sure you set up first. Most things in general you're probably not going to have to change. You're going to want to look at stream. So you can stream to different services of your choice, right? If you're streaming with Twitch, you can connect your account by just signing into your Twitch account. If you do not want to do that, you can grab the stream key from Twitch and put it in there. Same thing with YouTube. If you're streaming on YouTube, grab that stream key or connect your account directly to stream. You want to look at output and make sure your output settings are good. Again, there's a lot that can be tweaked here. Most of the time, it's going to default to settings that are good. The things you might want to look at are your video bitrate settings. This influences how smooth the video is or how kind of blocky and pixelated your output can get when there's a lot of changing dynamic elements on the screen. Video encoder is definitely important. If you have an NVIDIA card, you definitely want to choose NVENC as your encoding piece of hardware. Software X264 is using your CPU to encode, which you probably don't want to do if you're running a single PC setup or you're also spectating the game on that same account. The easiest thing to do is definitely just use NVENC if you have the supported graphics card. The AMD version will show up if you have an AMD card, and I've heard that is developing nicely, but it's definitely still behind the NVENC from the NVIDIA card. 8.264 is MP4s. That's probably the best basic video codec to use. Most of these other settings you don't have to change. Should be good. You can look at your video settings to make sure you're recording what you want. Streaming resolution, 1920 by 1080 is pretty default. 60 FPS is good. If you don't have the appropriate level of Twitch account, then they'll downscale it for you, so you don't have to worry too much about that. One last thing here under settings, under advanced, and this is always kind of a weird spot to find, is the stream delay option here. So specifically for games like Valorant, Overwatch, Fortnite, where real-time information is important, you want to enable that and set it to the default spectator stream delay as denoted in all the rule sets. Things like Rocket League, Smash Brothers, not very important. You can disable it for that. But follow the rules as necessary. Stream delay under advanced. And then when you're done, you can hit OK. It's trying to prompt me to sign into my YouTube account because that's what I chose. I'll just close that and it'll go away for now. But when you're ready to start streaming, you hit start. If you have a delay down here, it'll say stream starting in so many seconds due to your delay that you have. When you're done, you can hit stop. If you are streaming on a delay, just make sure you hit stop, but don't close OBS yet. It'll give you a countdown down here to stream out the rest of your delay. You don't want to exit OBS before that, or else the rest of your stream will be cut off. So just make sure you check this little status icon spot down here on the bottom right to make sure that you've streamed through the rest of your delay and you're not losing any footage. Like I said, there's a lot more about OBS that we could talk about, but I think that's probably best left for you to explore on your own or to ask individual questions. I want to show you about specifically integrating the resources from LeagueOS. So the first thing we need to do is go up to Tools and look at our WebSocket server settings. This is the easiest way to bring all of your overlays into OBS from a browser. So the default server port is fine. If you want to change that to something else, you're more than welcome to. It'll just give you an extra step once you're on the LeagueOS match page. You can disable authentication if you like. You can leave the password, generate a new one. Either way, when you hit show connect info, it'll show you all of its best guesses at what you need. Specifically, the server password is what you want to copy so that I can get into LeagueOS and make that connection. So here, back on LeagueOS on the match page, you'll notice in overlays, if I'm selected on OBS, there's this little link button here. This is the connection button to LeagueOS. If you click that when you first land on the match page, it'll give you an error because we need to go to connection parameters and make sure that I have my addresses correct. So if you're wanting to run OBS on a different computer for some reason, you could do that. Really, you don't need to with any of this. You can just run localhost on the same computer as long as it's internet connected. And I can paste this password here and then hit the connect button. You'll notice that everything here changes a little bit. I still have the open in a new window button here. So if I want to preview any of these things like the stage room, I can click on that arrow and this will bring up in a browser tab exactly what OBS is going to capture. And it'll show me what the Chrome overlay looks like with sponsors on the right, some matches along the bottom, and some a left rail as well. These are changeable, which I'll show you in a little bit as well. Or you can click on the middle button here, which is actually a copy button. So if you want this URL to be able to share with someone, or if you want to manually input it in OBS, you can click the name here, and it'll say it's been copied to clipboard. If some changes occur, so if you're like, hey, I streamed last week, but I need to get the new match overlay, there is a button on the right that says update existing overlay, which will replace your current scene browser source with the new one. Or along the right side, there's plus buttons where you can add these specific overlays to your current OBS scene. So there are a few different ways to do this. If you already have an OBS scene set up, like let's say I have a scene over here that is my main stream, I've got my cameras, I've got everything I need. I just want to bring in these browser sources. Then what we can do is in OBS just click the plus button on the right side. And what that will do is that will bring in specifically just this browser source into whatever scene I have selected. So it won't do anything else, but it will do that. If, however, we're starting fresh, like I am here, I probably want to bring everything over at the same time. So on the LeagueOS page, there's a Create All button at the top. When we click on that, it'll give me a little prompt that says, yep, we've created all your scenes. And when I go back to LeagueOS or to OBS, what I'll see is all of these new scenes with every overlay already populated for me. So what I would do then is say, okay, my starting screen, good. I don't really need anything else there video-wise. I'd probably have to add an audio source, which you can do by going to the plus button, just like you would for any OBS source. Add audio input capture, add whatever you need else to that source. Match preview, pretty standard. It's got the Chrome, and we've got all the stuff we need. We can go to the match itself. So the match page has the specific overlay at the top, and we'll talk about how to edit this and stuff in a second. But again, the idea is what you would do is then add your browser capture source here, probably video capture device. If you're streaming from a secondary computer, then you would do video capture device. If you're streaming from the same computer that you are spectating from, then you would just do game capture. So up to you and your specific setup. But all of these overlays are now created um, and in your browser. So some of them may or may not be useful based on your setup. You might not be bringing in remote casters, so you may not use the caster one. You can delete that if you need to. Some of the other ones are definitely going to be useful, well, or not, up to how you want to run your stream. The match one is where you're going to spend most of your time, obviously, and it's got the scoreboard at the top. So this is a Super Smash Brothers game. So we can see this is actually one already in progress between my two club teams at Snyder. It tells you we're in game 2 of a best of 3. The little box here is filled in to say that my gold team won the first round and we're in game 2. And it's got 12 to 12 at the top. So if we look back at LeagueOS and I go to my game 2, you can see back on the details tab that I have the score set to 12 to 12. The reason I have that for Smash Brothers is because the scoreboard is most useful in tracking stocks. So the beginning of the match, each team has 12 stocks, 4 players, 3 stocks each. As they lose stocks, you can come into LeagueOS and decrease the numbers as they're playing. What this will do, if we go back to OBS, is dynamically update. So you can use that as an overall stock counter for the game as it's being played, just by reducing that in LeagueOS. If you don't want to do that, you could use it just as an overall count of how many players there are. Complete flexibility and freedom there for whatever that looks like for you. One of the things we'll want to look at is how to change these overlays. So here on my match preview, if I'm selected on the Chrome, which is kind of the box around the outside, I can go to Interact, and then a pop-up window shows up that shows me what that source is, but it lets me interact with that as I would the web page. So if you hit H on any of these screens, it'll show you a little help pop up. And here it shows me, okay, I can change the rails with the L and R button. So let's try that. So if I hit the R button, what you'll see is along the right side, this right rail changes and cycles between a few different options for what I want displayed there. Normally we default to the sponsors, but you can do whatever you like. The sponsors has the additional interaction of when you're on the sponsor screen, you can hit the space bar, and the space bar does a little pop out of a cycle of those sponsor ads. So that's kind of nice as you're going through to be able to highlight one of the specific sponsors and have a little bit more information about them displayed. Bring back up the help menu with H. We can do a cache reset by refreshing the page. So if I hit refresh down here, it'll do that. I can shift sponsors up and down with K and I as well. So if we don't like the order, I can go back to interact and or move them up and down a little bit along the page. So depending on where you want them displayed based on what else is going on the screen, we can shift those up and down. Yeah, and I didn't show you, but L does the same with the left rail as R did with the right rail. So complete flexibility there on what you would like to display when. On the match activity, So if we double click that, we can look at some settings. That's another way to interact, or we can just hit the interact button here. There are a few things we can do. If you want to switch the order, again, we can hit H to see these, but the F button flips the teams. This is not as stark as it normally would be if it were not two Snyder teams playing, but you can see black and gold are switching which side they're on at the top. The swap team colors and switch color palette, not very useful with the Super Smash Bros. Overlay because it's not bringing in any colors from the game itself. But in some others that will be useful, and I'll show you that in a second. So again, on any of these overlays, if we hit the interact button, we can look at help, and we can see what each one of them does. Some of them don't have any interactions, so it's not going to show you any, but some of them do. So just keep that in mind. So there's Super Smash Brothers. One thing that I do want to note is, and if you're doing the score, this will automatically happen, but please try to keep the match up to date on LeagueOS as you're playing. So you'll notice I've already reported game 1 now that we're in game 2. That definitely helps for looking at all of these overlays and keeping them as up to date as possible while you're streaming. So it's beneficial to all if we can make sure that we're doing that. Let's take a look at a Valorant match, because Valorant has some additional details that are useful. So if I go back to OBS, I'm gonna just make a new scene. So I can go up to Scene Collection and hit New. We'll call this one Valorant. And again, what I do at Snyder is we have a scene for every game that we play. Might make more sense to you to do something else. Completely up to you. And then what I'll do is go back to LeagueOS, go to Resources, Overlays, Connection Parameters, paste my password there, and then hit Connect. Oh, I have the wrong thing because I copied something else. So go back to OBS, Tools, WebSocket Server, Show Connection, copy the password. Then I'll be able to come in and paste the actual password there and hit Connect. I'll create all the scenes since I don't have anything pre-created. And these are mostly the same, you'll see. We've got some match preview sorts of things. We've got the actual match itself. And so you'll notice the scoreboard at the top doesn't have any set score. Because when you're spectating Valorant, it will show on the game spectating screen itself here in the middle. So this is just kind of in addition to that. Whereas Super Smash Bros. Doesn't have a scoreboard in-game, which is why that overlay had its own discrete scoreboard. The Chrome settings are going to be the same. The match activity settings are what specifically we want to look at, because this is what we can look at the help for and see. This is where flipping teams, swapping team colors, and color palette is really useful. So in Valorant, if you're not familiar with that spectating, one of the teams is red and one of the teams is green, and it can be kind of hard to follow which one's which. So if Hobart here is on the other side of the screen relative to my stream, I can just hit F, and it will flip where the teams are located. This can be super helpful for keeping track of which team is which. But in addition, I can use the F and C buttons. So by default, C doesn't do anything if you're using team school colors. But as soon as I hit V, V will switch to using a red and green background behind the logos that matches the Valorant team colors. That can be, like I said, a little quality of life thing for your viewers if they're having trouble telling who is who. And then if you need to switch these colors, you hit the C button, and that'll switch who is which color. So again, all of this, if you hit the H key when you interact, is shown in your little tooltip. But just a nice little way of making sure the stream is as visually consistent as it can be. So the rest of everything else pretty much the same as what we saw for Smash Brothers. The one thing that is different, let me go back here and make another new one. We'll call this one Rocket League. Now, the Rocket League overlay is the most involved, but it is the most dynamic in terms of displaying information as well. So if we go to a Rocket League page, I can look under resources, have the same sorts of options, but this is where I really want to look at how to do this. So the OBS Connect help article, we've gone through this, but it's got some reminders here if you need help with that. The other article on match overlays has a lot of information. So it's got help with how to set up OBS. It's got information about which ones have custom overlays, how to change the specific Chrome overlays, what we can cycle through, lots and lots of information, how to set up game capture sources as well, how to resize that capture source to fit inside of the Chrome. So that information displays when you create the OBS scene, but it also displays here. The keyboard shortcuts on how to do the different interactions that we've done, including in-game colors, flipping colors, and those sorts of things. Once we get to playoffs, you'll be able to bring up the entire bracket that's led to that point in playoffs, and there are some specific keys there. And then we get to the Rocket League section. And the Rocket League section is, like I said, a little involved. Specifically, if you need help with this, definitely let us know, and we can help. But it is worth it if you're streaming Rocket League to have this integration set up because it definitely increases the quality of your production. The first thing you need to do is install Bacchusmon. If your Rocket League players have not already begged and pleaded with you to install Bacchusmon, it is a great training resource. It does a lot of things. It also helps with getting information out of Rocket League into OBS. So you want to download that. Once you do, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a ton to do. It launches in a little tiny menu that looks like this that you can kind of resize. The first time it might ask you to update it, and then when it runs it looks like this. Mine says uninjected because I don't have Rocket League running. We'll take a look at that in a second and how to do that. You'll also want to download the LeagueOS Overlay plugin by clicking this link. It'll download a zip file to your computer, wherever your default download is. And then we have to do a few things. So back in this OBS here, what I want to do is click File, and then open the Bacchusmon folder here like it says. That will open up your file explorer to the specific Bacchusmon folder. What else you want to do is go to your downloads location, wherever you downloaded the LeagueOS overlay plugin. My downloads folder is ridiculously full, so we're just going to hide that while it loads. Anyway, we're going to File, Open Bacchusmon folder again. We want to go to the plugin subfolder here. This is where the DLLs live for all of the Bacchusmon plugins. What we're going to do is we're going to find our LeagueOS. Here it says LOSOS. Open that up. Open up the plugins and open up the plugin subfolder and copy that DLL file into your Bacchusmon plugin. And apparently I can't drag, so we're going to copy and paste. Once it's there, we're done with this step. We can close out of our file explorers. If you have used an SOS plugin before, this is an important step. Make sure you delete that prior to copying over the LeagueOS one. It is a fork of that DLL, so make sure you don't have both running or else it will not work. From there, we need to launch Rocket League. And when you launch Rocket League, you'll notice that the Bacchusmon little window will start to say that it's injecting itself. That's great. That means it's working. So here it says it's injecting the DLL, and it's done. It's been injected. So once Rocket League opens up, I'll be able to show you how that will work. And we'll look at getting into the next settings. It's important to note that what we're doing so far is assuming that you are streaming from the same computer you're spectating Rocket League on. If that is not the case, we'll look at that in a second. There are some additional steps. But assuming that you are streaming from the same one, then that will be what we're doing. Let me change this to windowed so I can drag it over here. All right, so once I'm in Rocket League, I can hit the F2 button. That is the Bacchusmon settings option. And what we'll want to do is go to Plugins and Plugin Manager. We can open the Plugin Manager. Sorry that it's tiny. I'm on a 4K screen. Hopefully you all can read that. By default, it has all of them checked that come preloaded. We'll see the LOSOS one. We'll want to check that. And now that will become activated. I can close out of there and close out of there. So you only have to do that the first time. After that, don't have to worry about that anymore. So let's go back to our list. We're done with the requirements. We have configured everything we need to configure. Um, when you get into a match, nothing will happen at first until you actually start spectating. So let's go back and make sure that we have added all of our scenes. So lots of reminders on how to get to your WebSocket password in my video because I can't keep it copied to my clipboard. So when I hit connect, and I'll be able to create all of those in OBS again. So while I'm on my match page, you'll notice there's a little bit at the top. It brings over some information, but not nearly as much as is there. What we'll notice is that in order for most of this information to populate, we actually need to be in a custom match in Rocket League. So to test this, what you'll need to do is go to play and create your own private match. And it has to have bots. If the match doesn't start, which it won't unless you have players, then it won't start working. So throw in some beginner bots and create your match and get going. What you'll notice is once we start spectating, all the bots will pop up. We can double tap H to close out of that overlay because we won't be needing it. And then what I can do is come back here to OBS, and we'll notice now the entire overlay is populated. So you'll be seeing the game at the same time once you set up your game capture source, but it pulls over all your boost info, it pulls over the clock and all of your team information as well as the current score. It's like I said, it's a really full-featured overlay, and it's not super difficult to set up once you follow those steps and know what's going on. So it'll show you who you're spectating and all that information. If you're running on multiple PCs, so what we'll need to do, if we come back here and look at the help article, it'll show us exactly. But there's a few extra steps. The first one is you need to change the URL. So OBS WebSockets are insecure. They don't use HTTPS. So you'll have to delete the S from the HTTPS and add an I after overlays. So it tells you exactly here what you need to do. So in OBS, what that looks like is I can come into my match activity. Here's the URL. It's very long, but you'll want to go to the beginning. Again, two things. Delete the S, add an I after overlays. What that will do is it'll be looking externally over that socket for your Bacchus mod installation and the stream as opposed to looking on the local host from your own machine. The other thing you need to do is you need to interact with the browser source and type I for the IP address of that machine. So if I come back into OBS, I need to go to the match activity and interact with it. If I hit I, it'll bring up a little menu up here on the top, and you need to type your private IP address for the machine that you are running Rocket League and Bacchus mod on. You can find that IP however you like. ipconfig from the command line is an easy way. Just basically typing in that IP address here into this window, and then what you should see is it's working. If it is not, then it's probably because you have a Windows firewall issue. You can troubleshoot that really quickly by just quickly disabling Windows Firewall and seeing if it works. If it does, then there's some options for what you can do. But here, you can either open port 49122 on the firewall, or you can just allow outbound connections from your Rocket League to inbound connections from your OBS computer. If you need help specifically with that, again, let us know, and we can work through that. It's pretty easy to set up on a single machine. The dual machine setup takes a little bit of extra work, but it's definitely still feasible. And we can see everything still going on in the background. Apparently the bots on my team are doing a little bit better than the bots on the Indiana Digital Dragons team. So guess we're a little lucky today. But hopefully that was helpful in terms of setting up all the overlays and information. There's more than we covered. There's more in LeagueOS than what we covered. So take a look at all the different overlays and figure out how you can use them. But hopefully that was at least enough to show you that this is something worth doing if you're already streaming your matches, and if nothing else, giving you a little bit of background so that you can ask better questions in terms of how we can help you get this set up. As always, any help you need, reach out and let us know. We're happy to help.